welcome, folks, to another episode of Will's Review. I'm your host, Will D, and this is our first episode of 2021, which is still not quite feeling right to my mouth to say. I don't know. 2020 just kind of worked, right? Say it twice. It wasn't that nice, but just saying it twice is easy. I don't know. In a year that ended with some random moments of happiness, some heartbreak, and unfortunately, not as much food as I wanted. Stupid COVID. Hopefully, going into 2021, some new things are happening for all of us, and all of them being positive this go around. Although I think this first week we've already had people storming into the to Capitol Hill. Um, our president is well, you already know about El Presidente, but we got our $600. Well, yeah, because the rest of y'all have to file for it with your taxes, supposedly. Lord knows, there's always something funny with the money when it comes down to government, but at least they tried, right? So it's been a while since we've been here, right? And the reason we do this show all comes from the fact that the guy behind the sound likes the crap that I talk about when I talk about movies. So today, we have a ton of things that are streaming, whether it be on Vudu, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, that we're gonna get to. Okay. Exactly. Things we can skip, things that you must watch, and things that I think you should take a chance on. But I'll tell you which ones of yous, whether you're someone in action flicks, romance, whatever, which one of whatever group should take a shot on the series. But before we do all that, gonna do a quick sports roundup because, well, it's been a while. So let's get this over with. With the NFL, playoffs are happening. We're still waiting on 2 more games to find out who's going to be playing against who next week. But we do know that New York still has one team, and it's the only team that's actually from New York. So the Buffalo Bills made it to the next round. Rams made it to the next round. Bucks made it to the next round. And the Ravens, who I hate with all the loathing in my body. Damn 2000. They've also made it to the next round. As for the NBA, the Knicks are in 6th place with a slightly better record than the Nets. This is weird. Didn't expect that. You hear Kevin Durant's coming back, and the Nets are only winning half their games. Now, we're really early on, right? They're 5 for 5. The Knicks are 5 for 4. As I said, slightly better, and I really meant slightly. It's just I don't think anybody expected the Knicks to actually be 500 and the Nets to be 500. This is just perhaps 2021 really will be bringing change, but without Obama. Sorry, folks. You get Biden. Runner up. Now, last but not least in sports, a lot of stuff happening in wrestling. We're waiting for UFC to come back. So I'll leave you with a nice little funny note before we go to our first commercial break. And for some reason, I don't know who the heck is talking to Devon Dudley in the first place. He's not even the Dudley boy that everybody likes. He's just the black one. Look. Somehow, some way, someone got it out of him that if he wasn't a married man, he wishes he was Triple H because he wants Stephanie bad. Don't even know why that was brought up. Who goes and interviews Devon Dudley about anything? This wasn't like, oh, somebody in the locker room passed by and caught this. No, somebody took the time to have a conversation with him, and it led to this. People, it's 2021 now. Let's not waste our time with people who are irrelevant. I mean, this is kind of funny. Can you really imagine Devon Dudley and Stephanie McMahon? Might be some pretty babies, though. A lot of mixed kids are very beautiful, but yeah, I wouldn't watch that movie. Anywho, we're going to go to our first commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to get started with the things that you should be skipping no matter what platform you see them on.
LDM Radio.
Hello, I'm Charles Lorman. I'm proud to announce the new internet television station called LDM Network. And on this station, we're going to be bringing you live talk shows, music reviews, independent music artists, videos, sports, live events, and much, much more. Go to www.ldmnetwork.net for more information and all the shows that are going to be on this network. Again, that's www.ldmnetwork.net. And hey, if you are an independent artist or you love to hear independent music, go to our new radio station called LDM Radio.
All right, folks. So, this is probably the part where you're like, well, thank you for telling me not to waste my time, right? So, let's get to it. The Skip It list. It's not that long, surprisingly, considering that I watched 30 different series to their entirety. There's more that's still, like, partially finished on my queue, which, yeah, it's been 3 weeks. I watch a lot of TV. Still get my work done. Couldn't tell you how. I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that I'm up 21 hours a day. Anywho. First off is a movie called Don't Listen. It's a horror movie where there's like a little boy and there's stuff in his ears and he's hearing crap and the family's like, what's wrong with you? Yeah, really typical, really basic, not even humorously good. I don't mind a B horror movie if there's a comedy aspect to it, whether it be intentional or not. If I find myself laughing, at least I'm happy, right? They say laughter is the best medicine. I mean, maybe Tylenol, but it's easily number 2. And this gave me nothing. It was basic beyond basic. Skip it. Another movie that's, it's an action flick, has a little bit of hype, London Heist. I've never been so bored watching an action movie. Like, I'm really thinking about it. I can't think of the last time I've seen something that was an action movie. I mean, this movie actually had gunshots and people chasing each other, whatever. And I was so bored the entire time. Like, the action scenes couldn't even capture my interest. I couldn't even give it a bare minimum pass on just, well, at least the action was good. No, there was nothing about this movie I really enjoyed. I'm not sure you will either. Even some of the quippy British stuff was really falling flat. I don't know who put this together, but they should never be allowed to put anything else together. A while back, we spoke about a really interesting place off the coast of Africa called Cape Verde, right? And what we spoke about was the fact that it is a country known for a high level of colorism, and even the culture from there has been brought to the States and all that. Well, now they actually have a series drop on Netflix called Sako et Mangane, right? It's about these 2 detectives. Now, for a country known for having colorism issues, like 90% of this cast is dark as heck. Was really confused by that. But why this makes the skip it list? It's confusing. I watched the show, and by the end of everything, it kind of all comes together, right? But even by the ending of it, where there's supposed to be a big twist, it coming together at the end kind of makes like, oh, this twist doesn't hit. I just finally understand the series. Also, I like the aspect of adding a little bit of mysticism to something, but this just kind of really fell apart because of it. And it seems like an interesting crime drama at first, then it tries to become like a mystic African crime drama. And it's not the first time I've watched an African series where they do that, because, I mean, they're very spiritual culture, very into their ancestry, yada, yada. It makes sense. I normally enjoy it. But with the way that the camera was moving, corny action sequences, really predictable storyline, once you understood what the hell the storyline was, yeah, no, skip it. Just save yourself the headache. Next is a movie called Ava, female spy movie. Just felt like a really, really watered down, boring version of La Femme Nikita. I mean, she's attractive, but that doesn't hold my attention for 90 minutes. Sorry. Maybe that's why I'm single. Charles didn't even last 10 minutes watch. I'm telling you, it's just really boring. She's pretty. That's it. That's all this movie has. You gotta really be a fan of how good she looks, I guess. Next is a movie called Sweet Home. Well, it's a series, actually. A Korean drama where, well, it's like the Koreans were trying to redo Resident Evil, but keeping it in a hotel or cul-de-sac complex. They don't really exactly explain it, or I guess as an American, we don't really have much of a concept of what kind of living quarters this is. But it's a self quarantine zombie release thing going on, and everybody's kind of turning into monsters, and some of them can turn back. And are they going to kill each other, sell themselves out? It sounded like a series that could be really interesting, and it felt like a really corny Korean drama that might as well have been around a rich chick trying to marry a poor dude. Because I was left there half the time, even with the weird CGI monsters, being like, okay, and skip it. Not that great. No, I watched it in its entirety purely over of the fact that I started it. But that's it. Like I wasn't really interested in the story. It's just like, oh damn it, I'm already like 3 episodes in, trying to give it a shot. I might as well get all the way to episode like 12. Like, right? You're just like maybe it gets better, and even by the end of it, you're just kind of like, nah. Do I watch season 2? Of course, when season 2 drops, I'm gonna give it a shot because I watched all of goddamn season 1. This is my flaw as a viewer. But once I do something, I stick with it, no matter how bad it is. Um, which is why I'm trying to save you now. Don't even get started. Uh, another movie that came out that I had higher hopes for, and I will say I was able to bear it, but honestly, let me save you some time because, as everyone knows, I hate a very crappy ending. A movie called Greenland. A movie with a lot of potential. A movie with a lot of moments that are actually kind of like, yeah, this is pretty good. But a really bad, almost pointless, well, I mean, in the end it's a movie, so I guess somewhat pointless, but pointless ending. And I was left like, wait, I just watched all this for that? People, save yourself the trouble. Man wants to get his family together during the end of the world. Man gets family together for end of the world. The end. That is Greenland. That's it. I just saved you 2 hours of your life. You're welcome. But last but not least is probably the most predictable of all the movies I watched that would definitely make a skip it list. And it's a movie called Bobbleheads the Movie. Now, obviously, you're a grown man. You're not going to like a kid's movie. Except for the fact I like kids' movies. A good kids' movie has something for adults and something for children, right? Because they know that adults have to take children to it. So it's like a good episode of a cartoon show you watch growing up, and later as an adult you realize, ooh, they were saying some naughty stuff, right? That's what's supposed to be in a kids' movie, low key, right? Why they hid sex in the stars in the middle of The Lion King. Because they know kids aren't looking for the word, but there's going to be that one 15-year-old taking their little brother and be like, they say sex. Right, that's what we throw these in there for, right? For the animators to get a little fun out, a little restraint while they're doing all this work. For the fans who are adults to get some amusement. This movie has nothing for adults, nothing at all. I think kids would even be kind of like meh about it. It's like a really long extended version of something that should be on PBS from 10 to 10:30. And I know kids who don't necessarily want to watch the same show for 4 hours straight. And that's how this kind of felt, like a 4-hour long episode for no reason. Whatever. Got through it. I'm living. You don't have to live through that horrible experience, so you're welcome. Now, we're going to go and talk about the series that you should give a chance to. I chose these particular series for a multitude of reasons. But the number one, which I think is most important, is that I got through all of them, without realizing how much time passed, which means that even if it wasn't the best series, it was mildly entertaining, right? When 90 minutes doesn't feel like 90 minutes, you didn't waste your time, right? You're just kind of like, oh, time flew by. Exactly. So first is a series called The Idhun Chronicles, right? Season 2 just dropped. Now, I don't know what the original language of this is, but it explains why the animation style is very, very weird. The thing about it is, unlike season 1, there's a whole bunch of like teenage angst that I think hurts the series. Makes sense because they're teenagers, but I think it hurts the series. There's a lot of cool ideas and aspects brought up in season 1 that just kind of all get lost, and the world isn't built. The characters are barely developed. but there's enough action going on and enough flying colors and some weird stuff happening that you're kind of like, okay. It really felt like a teen drama on the old WB plus magic. I still say give it a shot. Because if you liked season 1, this might be that interim season that leads to a really dope season 3. So if you like season 1 of the Indian Chronicles, sit through season 2 and pray for season 3. That's what I suggest. Next is something called Dare Me, right? And this is a series from, I believe, 2019 that I caught an episode of it once on like FX or some random like TNT or something. And there wasn't really enough there at the time to catch my interest. Fortunately, I had just watched another movie that makes this Give It a Chance list that piqued my interest enough in this first episode that I got through it and was like, okay, let's get to episode 2 now. So I watched the series, all of it, Dare Me, and I will admit that by the end of it, I liked it. I think it's a good slow burn. In this case, there's more than one attractive lady to keep your attention for an hour. And there's a lot going on, right? We have teenagers that are coming into discovering their sexuality. We have these back and forth relationships. There's a murder going on. You're finding a bunch of these deep, dark, twisted paths to a bunch of different characters. There's just a lot going on. And not too many episodes. And I like that, right? Like, it's not too much in any aspect. It's not so much that now I can't follow any of the storylines. It's not so many episodes that it seems like a daunting task. We get a lot of action, a lot of storyline in a nice condensed size. Why can't more series pull this off? But if anything is the problem in this series, it's pacing. And like I said, getting through episode 1 can be a journey. That episode I don't think is 90 minutes, but it definitely felt like 2 or 3 hours. Once you get past it, the series starts to kind of build momentum all the way into the last few episodes where you're kind of like, wait, this is where it ends? No, that's not fair. And that's the tell of a good series. Not a great series, but a good series where you want the next season. So give it a shot. Dare Me. Now, the series that, I say series so wrong that my phone turns on Siri. Ain't that grand? The series, well, actually, it's a movie that got me interested to sit through episode 1, is the dumbest movie that I could not have been more amused by. But it's the story of something that I actually remember watching. And it's called Full Out 2, right? It's a stupid movie about cheerleading and breakdancing. I don't even know what possessed me to give it a shot. But when I saw it in my email pop up, this is coming out, something in me said, you know what? You may want to laugh. Give it a shot. It's a really bad version of Step Up. It really is so bad. It's so corny. It's all girl power, but not in the overly pretentious neo-feminism way, which is something I appreciated. And some of the dances are actually good. But why I watched it was that I found out it was about the Sooners, right? The Oklahoma Sooners. I remember when the Oklahoma Sooners were a big name in gymnastics. And respectfully, they still are. But I remember when, a lot of people were catching the wave. And it was around the time of an Olympics, which is why it was very important in my eyes, because usually the year before, I pay attention to gymnastics, right? The year before the Olympics, I don't watch the Worlds after. I watch the Worlds before. So, now you're hearing a bunch of Sooner talk, and you're like, okay, well, what's the story behind that? Find out this is the story of that, so I watched it. And I was pleasantly pleased. It's a corny movie. It might as well be up there with a really bad, American Pie 4 or something, where it's not that memorable, but you didn't, waste your time. You were amused. And they have a cool little thing at the end where they actually bring on the girls from the team that the characters are playing. So it was really cool. It was a really fun watch. But because I was watching this silly movie about cheerleaders, I said, well, let me give this drama about cheerleaders a chance. And I'm glad it worked out that way because I enjoyed Dare Me, and I will admit I enjoyed Full Out 2. That is definitely something that perhaps I shouldn't have said in front of a camera to be saved on the internet for all time. But I think we're all allowed a little trash. And if you're a Kardashians fan, You can't judge me for anything. Now, the series that disappointed me the most, and the only reason I'm saying to give it a shot as opposed to skip it, is the finale season to Sabrina the Teenage Witch on Netflix. And no, we're not talking Melissa Joan Hart. We're talking this new dark where she's actually an evil witch related to Riverdale storyline. Um, One, I didn't really get anything that really leads into Riverdale. Like I wanted them to end Sabrina, leading into Riverdale, where you're gonna get a CW version of it or some sort of like characters pop up back and forth. Bridge made, but not made. So I was really annoyed by that. Then, after spending all this time fighting the devil, we get a slight introduction to angels, but it goes nowhere. And she's battling like this non-existent being of existence, which I died a little when I saw the monster she was fighting. And literally the words, the void, are in a white space with these really crappy looking space ball things for a planet. Like it looks like an oversized school science project from 6th grade where they're like, can you make some sort of diorama of the solar system? Stupid. So stupid. So stupid. Then they have a really cool concept with like bringing out these ancient terrors, right? And I was rocking with that for a minute. It started off good. We get through terrors like 1 through 4. Then we get to 5. Then 6 through 8 all pretty much seem like they might as well be the void. And I was like, you're wasting all of my time. And then the very ending of this series, I'm not going to ruin it for you. I feel like I should just so you don't watch it. But I will be kind enough because I'm putting this on my give it a shot for all the fans who've been watching it, right? I feel like, honestly, after watching this, should have ended last season. But this is for you, so this way your expectations aren't as high as mine was because this series was really great until the end. But the way this series ends, it falls so flat for me on so many levels. Like, so many levels. Because after spending all this time fighting the void, you go to a void? Like, what? Huh? And after all the times that we've seen witches from the Spellman family be reborn, y'all just kind of sit there and go, oh, well, it's a void. Let it happen. Look, Sabrina fans, I'm sorry. But it's not the ending we deserve at all. Maybe they'll do a spin-off with Harvey and his girlfriend. Who knows? I can only hope. Now, we have 2 other movies that remind me of each other, right? B action stars, a couple of A's thrown in there, but it's a B action movie. People shooting, people robbing, people whatever. If you just want something to kill your time, feel like you're watching something, want to see a couple familiar faces, watch 999 and Marauders. There's nothing exceptional about these movies. You've definitely seen these same movies done before, but one of them has Batista in it, right? Like, really, the selling point is some of the names, but it's nothing special. Also watched a really dumb series that I know was. See, I don't know if anybody remembers the name Pauly Shore from the 90s, right? But when he's in something, you're looking at a super corny, super stupid, super fun movie. And that's exactly what you get out of this movie called Guest House, right? It's just this really fun, corny, guy who's living in a guest house that this family is purchasing the actual house for. They want to evict him, and he's using his squatter rights and the back and forth between them. Typical old school 90s, early 2000s comedy. Could be done with a frat party. I think they did do it with a frat, like with Neighbors, right? Very similar, but it always hits. Especially if you like drugs. So for all you who like to elevate your mind without a book, go ahead and watch Guest House. All right. But last but not least is a series that I'm only putting on this list and not putting it on a must-watch list because I feel that unless you have this, you know, liking of certain cultures, if you have an open-mindedness to certain things, this is just not going to hit. This is going to come across very corny. But King of Joburg, right? It's about the underground world of Johannesburg, South Africa. The series is about a bunch of kingpins who are essentially, vying to be top dog. At the same time, you get a brother who's returning from jail, trying to figure out his life now that he wants to fix things. He doesn't want to be a criminal anymore. We got the cops who's trying to get everybody. And then out of nowhere, we get magic. Like I said, African series do stuff like this all the time. But the magic is very important in this series. And it fits. It makes so much more sense. And they explain it a lot better. That it doesn't interfere with anything. In fact, you're very interested in it from episode 1. So I suggest this for people who are curious about just what comes out of South Africa, right? Just the curiosity of, like, what kind of TV do they make? But at the same time, people who are just kind of interested in some good storytelling. There's a lot of stuff happening in this series. It feels like a really good soap opera, but less cheese factor. Like, it's not over-the-top novella. It's not corny All My Children. It's not quite an evening drama, but it's definitely not as lowbrow as a soap opera. I don't know what you want to call it. Maybe a less comical version of Dallas, right, is what this is. And it's full of black people, so black power. On that note, we're going to go to our next commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what you must watch. So, Charles, take us to our next break. We'll be back.
I'm proud to announce the new internet television station called LDM Network. And on this station, we're going to be bringing you live talk shows, music reviews, independent music artists, videos, sports, live events, and much, much more. Go to www.ldmnetwork.net for more information and all the shows that are going to be on this network. Again, that's www.ldmnetwork.net. And hey, if you are an independent artist or you love to hear independent music, go to our new radio station called LDM Radio. Go to www.ldmradio.com for more information on where to listen or submit your music. Hi, I'm Charles Alomar, and I want to thank you for watching the LDM Network. For more information on this show or any other show, please go to www.ldmnetwork.net. Again, that's www.ldmnetwork.net. And now, let's get back to our show.
We're going to try and get through all these things that I suggest that you watch. The hardest part is literally going to be making sure that you can understand my English as I jarble, because I might be getting a little excited talking about certain things, all right? So, fair warning, you might want to hit the pause button, hit rewind a couple of times. I will be speaking fast. For those of you who know, yes, I went to school with white people. So, right? Let's get through this as best as possible. First is a really dumb series that I'm a little mad at myself for enjoying as much as I did. It's an old series that used to be on Disney called Liv and Maddie. Never watched it when it was out, but sometimes you just want to watch something really lighthearted. Sometimes I like to check in and see what are the different shows that, my generation, we talk about, That's So Raven and Even Steven. I realize I'm getting older. I realize I'm completely out of touch. And I realize just with a difference of 3 to 4 years, I don't know or feel the same about certain shows. So I heard somebody mention this show while I was working at the hospital. And I was like, I never watched that. They're just like, you should check it out. It was really good. So I see it pop up on Netflix like 3-4 months later. And I was like, All right, bet. No lie, it was really good. It was really good. I understand why the lead actress won an Emmy. Um, she actually did a really great job portraying two different people. They hardly sound alike. She definitely like had different mannerisms. I mean, it was a really well done show. Silly comedy about a two twins, one who was famous in Hollywood and is coming back home after being gone for like 2 years doing a TV show, and another one who's like a super great athlete. They go to this again. Disney loves this concept of a really progressive alternative high school, and kind of how they readjust to life involving each other now, right? One's realizing she missed out on so much. The other one's kind of getting used to having her twin sister back. And of course, when you have twins, they play with the same little like flip flop dumb stuff. Uh, it's not to say it's the most original comedy, but there's a lot in it that's really good. That if 10 years down the line, I have kids, or whenever I have kids, I'd be like, yeah, they can grow up on watching this. Like it's a good quality family TV, silly comedy. I'd say it's some the type of Disney we grew up with actually continued it, and good content. So Liv and Maddie, I enjoyed it. I would say watch it if you haven't seen it. A series that I literally finished last night at 1 a.m. This is partially why I sleep only 3 hours. LA's Finest. I was disappointed when I saw that Jessica Alba and Gabrielle Union did a TV show together I knew nothing about. I didn't even know they had a season on TV. I didn't know about it. But then was really disappointed when I found out it was one season. But it's a good thing it was one season. I hate when a show has a premise and a goal. They reach it, they see money, and they think, oh, well, maybe the season 2. Now, part of why there may be no season 2 and why they didn't do this is that people like me didn't even know there was a show. And frankly, you have Jessica Alba and Gabrielle Union in a show where in the first episode, Gabrielle Union is naked, but the two of them don't sleep together? That is why there was no season 2. You can laugh all you want. You can say, oh my God, I can't believe you said, but it's true. They're hot. They gotta at least kiss. I'm sorry, but this is 2021, baby. This is what people want. But the show was good. It was actually good. A little less cheesy than the Hawaii Five-0 reboot, right? A little awkward when they had to do this. There's an action sequence when they find this guy who's like a homeless military vet who went AWOL. But there's enough with the two of them that everything that happens on the show makes sense. They have a good beginning, a good ending. Everything in between, there's a lot of drama, hidden secrets. Everything is revealed. Everybody finds out everything. It's a show that was one season that needed to be one season, and they did it. But all the storylines are pretty much wrapped up. Anything you cared about, pretty much wrapped up. Every major storyline, you're left with, of course, well, what happens next? Because you're invested in these characters' lives, but everything kind of beginning, middle, end. I have no complaints.
I like how they do the explaining about Bad Boys.
Oh yeah, they explained the Bad Boys. Yeah, I mean there was a lot. There was a lot of stuff thrown in there, and I was like, you know what? I mess with this series. It's really good. So if you didn't see it on TV like myself, and again, here's the thing. I think this show looks like the type of show that would be filmed and aired on CBS. Charles, when it was on TV, was it on CBS? It was NBC. This I know. Jennifer Lopez had the NBC show. Well, see if you can pull it up because this looks like a CBS series. And I'm telling you right off the rip, if a show is on CBS, unless it's a comedy, I'm probably not going to watch it, right? Like, CBS isn't built for people like me, and half the time they don't have... It was a Fox series? How the hell did I sleep on a Fox series? Wait. They didn't promote it. No, because I was watching Fox all the time for Lethal Weapon at the time. It's a 2019 series, right? 2018, 2019? Yeah. I didn't even know this was a damn thing. Well, I'm glad Netflix brought it out because I enjoyed it thoroughly. Well, the only thing missing, I'm swearing, Jessica Alba and Gabrielle, y'all need to have a makeout scene or something. Y'all were revealing so many secrets to each other. You could have had an emotional moment. Make it up to me now. Maybe make another thing and do it. Thank you. Yeah, that's it. But they wrapped everything up. It was good. Cobra Kai came back with season 3. And honestly, season 3 makes me hype for season 4. I'm hearing mixed reviews though from a lot of people who binged it as early as I did, right? So it was originally supposed to be released on the 8th. It came out early on the 1st, although they were still like sending out emails and notifications on the 8th, which was a week later than when they told you, "Oh yeah, it's out now." I don't understand that. Netflix, you got to fix your system on that. But honestly, I was thrilled with this season. I don't know why people are hating on it or like, "Oh, the series, stretch out their premise so long and it gets watered down." Everything about this was leading to what we wanted. Is it an interim season? Perhaps. But I think there was enough going on to explain, like, this wasn't like the interim season of Leviathan for Supernatural where they just kind of needed to reboot interest, reboot, like, who the new major enemy and bad guy was. No. We know who the good guy is, who the bad guy is, and we essentially have to explain another character's past, which they do. And now you really get the Cobra Kai versus storyline that we all knew was coming, right? It's a bit predictable, don't get me wrong, but we got how they were going to progress forward after the big high school fight last year, right? We got the clear definition of teams now. We got a little bit more unison amongst the kids because, I mean, like, let's be honest. Before they all started learning karate, they were all kind of hanging out anyway. A lot of good stuff happening here. And I'm really happy with what they did in season 3. I think you should give it a shot. I know my mom's watching it now and she's loving it. And my mom don't love everything, so to me that says a lot about a series. Next, I was watching a couple things on the WWE Network, right? First up was WWE 24/7 with Keith Lee. And I rarely watch it 24/7 because a lot of the superstars, we know a lot about their lives. The 24/7s are really about a very specific event for them. But Keith Lee, although I've followed him for a bit online, right? What am I seeing on Instagram but pictures? I don't know his story. And because a lot of people who are big on WWE and not so much the indie circuit, I mean, even if you are a fan of the indie circuit, because it's not as publicized or hype, people don't get into the depth. So to learn as much as I did about Keith Lee, to really get an idea of where he comes from, his personality, how long he struggled, his journey, I thought that this particular 24/7 was very, very good. I thought it was very interesting. That it was very good, very well done. And to know what the different wrestlers actually think of Keith Lee and how much respect he's garnered and how he built his character from, almost nothing. And I mean, having almost nothing in his entire life and kind of building there. It's impressive. You see him in the ring and you realize as an athlete that he's an impressive man with a lot of acrobatic and athletic capabilities. But then to know his journey and to know that, again, he's not a young man, but he's been doing this for how long and at such a high level. I remember the first time seeing him on Mia Yim's page, right? And this is before they started dating, but when they started working together in a lot of these intergender wrestling leagues, and they would come to New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, so they pop up on my feed a lot. To know his story before that. And then at one point, I remember that I used to see them together a lot. You knew they were dating. You saw the holiday photos. I saw him wrestling in a lot more different places. And the next thing you know, I'm hearing he's going to be in WWE. I was very excited because I'm like, this guy from the internet made it. I didn't realize how big he was abroad. Same thing with Drew McIntyre. When he disappeared out of WWE, you were like, is he dead? Then you see him on Impact and you're like, oh, yay, he's not dead. But you didn't realize how big he got overseas. It's like that rock band that disappeared in the 80s and you're like, what happened to you? Or like Coolio, right? We all thought that Coolio made that one song, that one album, and he was gone. Said, no, he was so big in Europe, he stayed there for 20 years. That man with the wild dreads. These guys know what they're doing, and this was one of those few WWE behind-the-scenes things that really proved it and really exemplified how great of a person, how great of a wrestler, a professional Keith Lee is. So I loved it. I also watched the Broken Skull with Drew McIntyre, and I was very impressed with him, and especially to have someone like Stone Cold speak so highly of him and to his face because, Stone Cold don't care. It says a lot. Stone Cold would have called him out on his BS, and he didn't have to. Drew owns up to a lot of his faults, and I respect that. A lot of people aren't accountable for their actions. He knew where he was, where he messed up, how he figured out how to make himself better, relevant, rebranded himself, and finally fulfilled the prophecy, not of Adam Cole, but of Vince McMahon. So I thought that was a very interesting one. It was a fun ride to learn the journey of Drew McIntyre. And there's something different about, and this is why I wait for moments like this, is that there's something different about finding out someone's story from them, in interviews while they're talking, uh, even in a book, than just reading somebody's summary on a Wikipedia page. Because I mean, people are like, well, you could have just looked it up. I could have, but it doesn't have the same effect. You don't hear all the emotion and you don't feel the passion of the struggle when it's not coming from someone's mouth. So I do appreciate the behind the scenes things like this that WWE puts together for the actual fans, the true fans who want this. You may even know the story, but when you hear a story from a person, is so much different than when you read about it, when you get the snippet, and they only tell you the parts that are relevant. That's all you really need too. So I thought these two projects were really good, and it explains why these two guys are really running WWE right now. I would love if they could do a Broken Skull with Roman Reigns. To be honest, I think him and Stone Cold have a lot to talk about, a lot, especially if they get The Rock to just come in real quick and talk to his little cousin like that. It'd be dope. Be dope. I would actually love a Broken Skull with The Rock and Stone Cold. I mean, they've done stuff like that before, but just in the format, I think it'd be great. It can be a 2-hour episode. I sit and watch all that. I watched both Undertaker ones, and I mean, they did one 2 months later, had to do it again because his career was ending, and both of them were very entertaining. You were like, how much more is there to talk about? There's 30 years of wrestling right there, and I mean, just between the two of them, in some capacity, it's amazing. You don't even have to be a wrestling fan to really enjoy it. Now, before the holidays, there were some series that dropped. So, Mr. Iglesias season 3, there's nothing missing from it. It's not necessarily a show that gets better in a sense of that there's more being put in it, developed, there's a change and stuff. No, it's a show that figured out a formula that works, and they haven't messed with it yet because they don't need to. It's still funny, the stories are still interesting, and my complaint is still the same: not enough episodes. But again, I also realize that maybe in trying to stretch out a season to be 10 to 20 episodes, it may lose some of its greatness. So, although frustrated as a fan because there's not a lot to binge, I appreciate the content that does come out because it stays at the same quality that I enjoy. So, Mr. Iglesias season 3, take a look. Wentworth season 8. I can't talk enough about Wentworth. It's the second greatest series on Netflix right now, hands down, no question. I will fight you about it. And if you ask me what the first is, you already know it's Sense8. I talk about it all the time. Sense8, greatest thing. Why it got canceled? Because Netflix is racist. But Wentworth is the second greatest series on Netflix, and you should be watching it. It has 8 seasons of gloriousness. And even though some seasons may feel like they're dropping when they're trying to switch over the roster of the cast, but the way that this last season ended, Ferguson, greatest villain in TV history, hands down. Fight me on it. 8. There might be 9 out, but 8 on Netflix. That's right. Now, I was making fun of Sweet Home, but Korea did draw. Oh, well, this one I think is Japanese, actually. Alice in Borderland. This one is a genre that normally when I see it in an anime, I skip it. People get trapped, or people seemingly get trapped in like this video game, right? Where now you have to complete these puzzles, find these cards to escape the game, right? But one person gets to escape after all 52 cards and 52 puzzles have been solved and survived. In these games, you're going around killing people or trying not to die. That's it. These are your options. There are a lot of different games, a lot of different variations. Each suit tells you what kind of game it is. Is it going to be one to mess with your mental, with your emotions? Is it one that's going to be a physical challenge? Is it one that's going to be a straight-up fight? Depending on the card that you draw or the card that's announced for the game is the level of difficulty. It's really dope. And the way that the season ends, oh, man, I don't even want to even talk about it because I want you to just be like, how does it end? What is it going? Alice in Borderland, I normally hate this like dropped in a video game drama. How did we get here? What do we do? How do we escape? It's normally very corny, very repetitive. This was not the same. It felt like battle royale with a really twisted concept. And I love that because Battle Royale is one of the greatest series I've ever read or watched. This series is dope. I mean, honestly, you get invested in characters so quickly, and they don't even last all the way to the end. I'm going to tell you that much, right? I'm going to make you feel some type of way about it. You just ruined it for me. No, I didn't, because they die so soon, you're wondering, how can this even continue? And it gets worse. It gets so much worse. I love it so much. I really want a season 2. I want this so bad. I need to see the last cards of the deck played. I need it. So, Alice in Borderland, you need to get on this wave. You need to be getting the same kind of crackhead, fiend scratching, itching, like, oh, I want more that I have for this series because it is dope. Really dope. Now, on a more comedic note, we have a couple of comedies that drop. So, pardon my Icelandic, right? It's this Icelandic guy doing stand-up. A lot of stuff about Iceland is stuff that we as Americans don't know, right? Nordic people know it. Some Europeans care about Iceland. I think there was a volcano or something that happened in Greenland or Iceland that messed up air traffic for like 3 days. That's what the U.S. knows about it. But this guy has such a unique viewpoint. And even though sometimes it's really basic and some of the jokes are very much like regional, it still hits, right? Guy talking funny is a guy talking funny. Funny is funny, right? I mean, you don't need to understand anything more than that. So if a guy's making fun of a Danish accent, a British accent, or whatever accent, you're like, hey, they sound funny, which is the point. So you can laugh at any of this. This is white comedy that black people can enjoy because it's so simple. It's very straight to the point. And it's you pretty much, if you've ever experienced anybody other than a minority person, if you've experienced white people to any capacity other than racist, you'll find this funny. It's a good stand-up. Pardon my Icelandic. If you can spell that, you're good. Also, Schulz, Shulz, Saves America. 4-part series, kind of talking about some of the biggest issues of 2020. Really funny, really straightforward. It's a white guy talking about issues that are about economics and race and whatever. He's technically Canadian, just to put it out there. He's not an American, though he makes fun of Canada and acts like he's an American. But he's a Canadian. He's Justin Bieber, essentially, but cooler. And it had me rolling. From start to finish, it had me rolling. My father was passing by as I'm watching it, and he normally hates this sort of thing, and he was laughing every time he walked by. Like, he found excuses just to walk by so that he thought I wouldn't realize that he was trying to watch the series that I'm watching, right? Like, the dumbest things. I've never seen a man try and get cookies so much, and he's not even hungry, right? It was bad. But, no, it's a really funny series, so I suggest that you give it a shot. Michael McIntyre, I don't know. But it's a stand-up called Showman. Really simple. Again, another white comedy, but I feel like more of us are getting into the kind of like British comedy feel. And it was funny. It was very witty. It was very smart. It's not so slapstick, I think, as part of my Icelandic. And not to say that that's bad. It's just very much more like you gotta have a moment to really think and ingest. And it's not like it's a deep thinking thing. We're not talking about a Veer Das comedy. No, we're just talking about some jokes that like you have to have experienced a little bit of life to understand. That's not a bad thing. That just means live life. So I think that's a very solid series right there. London Hughes also dropped a comedy stand-up called To Catch a... Am I allowed to say the last word on this? I mean, technically, I'll say To Catch a Richard. If you know the nickname for Richard, you'll understand. The D word. Oh, another series I'm about to get to, called The History of Swear Words, the D word is very interesting because you can kind of sort of say it on stuff, but not really. And there's certain weird rules. So since we do media, I'm playing it safe with this one, and To Catch a Richard. Honestly, after watching this series, I feel like London Hughes is a mildly attractive, attainable, like, hot celebrity, if that makes any sense, right? Like, she's attractive, but then you're kind of like, but not really. But then you're like, yeah. But then she's, like, really humble and very slutty and is, like, And these aren't jokes. This is just my life. And yes, if you buy me Prada, I will screw you. And you're wondering, like, well, can I afford a Prada bag? And then you realize you're in New York and you're like, yeah, it's in Chinatown. You just gotta, it'll have an E at the end, but you know. But no, the stand up is really funny. Her material is definitely feminist, but not neo feminist to the point where you're like, eh. And I found a lot of it hilarious. I think the best part too is that like afterwards, after her stand up, she does a special with like her mom and her dad like watching it, and this is like her talking about how she learned how to give head and coming to America and sleeping around with a whole bunch of different people. She does a whole descriptor about the difference between sleeping with a black guy and sleeping with a white guy. Growers versus showers, and it was really fun because the Brits are already known for being able to say things that Americans are a little too prude to talk about, right? So not only is this a Brit, but she's also Caribbean and, experiencing America for the first time in an era where we're like breaking through a lot of these barriers as far as censorship as a generation. So she's really just going there and like being herself and having fun on stage, and you feel the energy, you loving the comedy, and definitely don't watch this with your mother. I don't know how she did. But it's really good. It's really fun. It's entertaining. Uh, then we have we have the history of swear words. 6 episodes, 6 swear words. The etymology, the science, the history, and the comedy. This is the only. Well, this is one of 2 series that I will say gets a perfect score of a 5 of 5. Everything about it's right from the moment that this starts off about the F word. With Nicolas Cage, I was already in love with it. I was 5 seconds into this, and I was in love with it. I haven't been in love with the series this fast than when I saw Laura Prepon's breast on Orange is the New Black. 8 seconds in, and all of that 70s show finally made sense. Hot Donna was hot. All right, so this is great, too. A movie that'll make you throw back called We Can Be Heroes will take you back to the feeling of Shark Boy and Lava Girl, but the next generation. Really simple movie, a lot of fun, and the potential to build a little mini, streaming franchise, perhaps a TV series. Who knows? But I thought it was really cute. It was really great for the whole family. Like I said, it got to be appealing to the adults. It draws on our nostalgia and some different things in the context of the story that I won't get too much into. But the kids will definitely enjoy it. Fun action, fun creativity, some interesting moments with the guy who has slow motion. But another series for kids, right? Like the slow Asian guy I was rolling. Another series that I think was good. I finally watched all of Pokemon Sun and Moon. That was dope. American Gods just dropped season 3, the first episode, but the first 2 seasons you can watch on Stars. I'm interested to see how they continue without Anansi, but I think all in all, it has been an interesting show. It's a show that gets better. There's a lot going on season 1. A lot more explaining clarity season 2, and season 3 looks like it can build off of all of that. So I'm interested to see where it goes. I just downloaded season 3 episode now. I'm about to watch it later on the way home. The Raid 2 is also streaming, so if you like Asian kung fu movies with a lot of action, yeah, this was sick. This was freaking sick. And this time the storyline makes a bit more sense, like there's more depth to it. So I enjoyed that. Fast and Furious Spy Racers dropped season 3. It is the weakest of the 3 seasons, and yet I couldn't really be mad. I still enjoyed just about all that happened in it. It's just that the first 2 were more interesting. The bad guys were better, and this bad guy kind of sucked. They were kind of boring, but it's a lot of fun stuff. France dropped something called Lupin, about a black guy getting revenge for his family through crimes like I don't know if anybody knows the book, but a lot of people know the anime with the whole theme song, Lupin, Lupin, like that whole thing. Like, yeah, so he's doing the same thing, right? That cartoon is dope, man. It's big famous here. So, he's going around in France getting revenge for his family, doing these really great crimes, but really intelligently. So I recommend watching it if you're someone into a crime drama, into creativity, just a psychological thriller is this series. The Disney movie Soul came out. I do recommend watching it, as long as the Netflix series Canvas. These are 2 great animated shorts for black representation. Soul is a full-length movie, but honestly, I feel like it would have been a better short. All in all, the movie is good. There's a lot of great comedy in it, a lot of good feelings, but I think the best part about it is that kind of like that realization that sometimes what we think our dreams are isn't really what we want out of life. We just kind of build this expectation or this fantasy of what it could be. The reality is we may find satisfaction elsewhere. So always keep an open mind to all things that are coming to you, because don't feel like you're stuck on one goal and you have to stick to it. You may find something even better, more suited for you along the way. Um, and I think that was a really great lesson to be taught, especially in a Disney movie where it can reach a whole generation of people. But Canvas is the story of a man who's trying to find his love for art again, because it was a symbol of his love for his wife, who he lost. And so, of course, you lose the person that is your muse, and you kind of lose the love for it. But he found a way to find his love again. It's a really great, beautiful, I think like 6-7 minute short. It was really good. It was just really, really good, really touching. But last but not least is the biggest surprise I had out of all of these, right? And it's a series, or it's a movie called The Madman and the Professor, right? I haven't seen Mel Gibson in a lot of stuff over the years, especially after his big Jew rant that everybody still talks about, almost as much as the Hasselhoff hamburger thing. But it's the story of the Oxford Dictionary. Now, I see the Professor and Madman. I see Mel Gibson and Sean Penn, and I'm thinking, oh, snap, they're doing Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde again? So I watch it. Like, I'm not even going to lie. I really thought they were going to do some weird Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Thing starts off, there's a guy being chased down and about to get killed. There's a whole court trial. And I mean, even on the other end, this was two storylines, two movies about the guys who really put in that work to put in the first editions of the Oxford Dictionary, really trying to break down the American language. When I break it down like that, it sounds really boring. But when you watch this movie of a man who's struggling to fit in with academia, even though he's never really been a man of status, well-versed, well-knowledge, but very unexpected from someone of a lowly class, right? At the same time, you have another man who was a brilliant doctor who lost his mind after the war, and kind of how his life spirals down, and this is kind of his search for redemption. This is the type of movie that typically gets Oscar buzz. And why I say that is that, some boring premise, very pretentious idea. I really watched this with so much focus after the first 20 minutes, because there's enough going on in there that you're like, okay, this is kind of interesting. When you realize that it's really about the dictionary, you're like 30, 40 minutes into the movie, and you're like, wait, I'm watching a movie about the dictionary. And you're like, never mind, because there's so much going on. This could have been two separate movies done so well. Even the Mel Gibson part that's purely really about the dictionary was done so well that I understand why they broke it down, because I think the pieces may not have lasted for the entire length of 120 minutes. But this is one of those few Oscar movies or Oscar level, Academy Award winning, where when the artists like it for all the things that we as regular fans may not really enjoy, you as a regular fan can actually enjoy. This movie needs to be nominated and win something. I don't say that often. I rarely say that. I can give two craps about the Academy Award, but there's something for actors about that award where the performances, the script, the director, everything about this movie was right. It is the other movie series in this bunch that gets the absolute perfect score of a 5 out of 5. And it was the biggest surprise out of everything I watched, because when I really think about the premise, I'm like, I would have never watched that. If it wasn't for the fact that the title, to me, was misleading, I would have skipped over this. But I saw that this was a movie that it said, a movie about James so-and-so who wrote the first edition of the Oxford. I would have definitely skipped that crap. All I saw was a title that said Professor and Madman. And I don't know any other story about a professor and a madman involving white people and not Japanese that isn't Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I feel robbed of that. But I saw perfection. I can't complain. And Lord knows we all loved the last time that Mel Gibson played a Scot. So, right? So that definitely hit right at home just fine. So I recommend that above all else that you watch The Madman and The Professor. So on that note, folks, we're gonna do our fans of the week and get out of here because, well, it's about that time. So first up, we have Dustin Strube. Am I correct? From Facebook. He was probably our most active fan all 2020, and he continues on with his streak into 2021. So thank you, Dustin. We appreciate the love. Next, we have Songboy Frank Carter coming in as first for 2021. I feel like he's probably first every year I do this. He is one of the best and most loyal followers and friends on my page. So shout out to Frank Carter. And we do have a newbie, one newbie to start off the year, and it is that girl Nia, someone who recently joined just at the ending of 2020, and she is now a fan of the week already for the first week in 2021. So thank you, Nia, for hopping on board. Also, shout out to Jordan Lane who came along.